Hi everyone. The bar buzzed with energy, a lively din of laughter and clinking glasses. It was our anniversary, and Sarah had insisted we celebrate with friends. At first, I was hesitant. A quiet dinner at home seemed more fitting for the occasion, but she insisted it had to be memorable. I should have known she had her own agenda. There we were surrounded by our closest friends. Sarah was in her element, laughing loudly, commanding attention, and pouring drinks like a seasoned bartender. I watched her, smiling, reminding myself that she was the reason our social circle thrived. She was magnetic, charming, everything I wasn't. All right, everyone settle down. Sarah called out, raising her wine glass. The room quieted, and a few curious heads turned our way. I'd like to make a toast. I smiled, bracing myself for some sweet sentiment about our years together. She was good at these moments, always knowing the right thing to say. But tonight, something was different. She began, "First off, let's all raise a glass to my amazing husband." The group cheered, their glasses lifting high. I felt a swell of pride. Then her tone shifted. "Now I have to share something about Jake that not everyone here knows." A mischievous grin spread across her face. "You see, Jake has this special talent. He can somehow burn water when he's trying to cook." Laughter erupted. My cheeks burned, but I chuckled along, thinking it was harmless enough. "And oh, don't get me started on his fashion sense." She continued, her voice laced with mockery. "Last week, he wore socks with sandals." Socks with sandals. I mean, who even does that anymore? The group howled with laughter. I forced a grin, hoping this would be the end of it. But Sarah wasn't finished. "And of course, there's his career," she said, her eyes gleaming. "My husband, the dreamer, always working on the next big thing." "Jake, honey, how's that side project coming along? You know, the one you've been talking about for, 2 years now?" The laughter this time was softer, almost hesitant, as though even the audience recognized she had crossed a line. My stomach churned. She wasn't just teasing. She was airing my insecurities, turning them into entertainment. All right, she finally said, noticing the shift in the room. "I'm just kidding. I love this man, quirks and all." She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek, as if that erased the sting of her words. The group returned to their drinks, the moment passing for everyone but me. I sat there, forcing a smile, my mind replaying every word. When the night wound down, Sarah draped an arm around me as we headed home. "Don't be mad," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "It was just a joke." "A joke?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "You're being too sensitive," she said, brushing me off. Everyone thought it was funny. I wanted to argue, to tell her how she'd embarrassed me in front of people I considered friends. But the words caught in my throat. It wasn't just the toast. It was the way she dismissed my feelings as if they didn't matter. That night, as Sarah fell asleep beside me, her arm lazily slung over my chest, I stared at the ceiling. I told myself it was just a bad joke, a poor choice on her part. But deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something more to her behavior. Little did I know, that toast was only the beginning. The next morning, the memory of Sarah's toast still stung. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself it was just her way of being playful. But as the day wore on, I couldn't stop replaying the laughter, her dismissive words, and the way she had so effortlessly brushed off my feelings. Something about it gnawed at me. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed completely unbothered. She went about her day humming tunes, texting on her phone, and occasionally throwing in a casual "love you, babe," as if nothing had happened. The disconnect between us felt like a widening chasm. But I told myself I was imagining things. That evening, she had plans to meet her girlfriend for drinks, leaving me alone at home. I didn't mind. I needed the space to think. After she left, I busied myself with little tasks to pass the time, sorting through emails, tidying up the kitchen. But as the hours passed, I started to notice something unusual. Sarah's phone had been buzzing nonstop before she left. Now, as I sat in the quiet house, it hit me that her phone had been going off like that a lot lately, especially when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I dismissed the thought, trying not to let my paranoia get the better of me. But then, at around 10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Sarah's number. I frowned, confused. Why was she calling me when she was out with her friends? I picked up, expecting to hear her voice, maybe asking me to pick her up or saying she'd forgotten something. "Hello?" I said, but the other end was silent. Then I heard it. A low, muffled voice. It wasn't Sarah. It was a man. "You're unbelievable. You know that?" he said, his tone both playful and accusing. "You think Jake suspects anything?" My blood ran cold. Sarah's laugh came through next, quiet but unmistakable. "Relax," she said. "He's clueless. He's too busy feeling sorry for himself to notice anything." I stood frozen, my phone pressed to my ear as my mind scrambled to process what I was hearing. The conversation continued, their voices low but clear enough to understand. "I can't keep sneaking around like this, Sarah," the man said. "It's getting risky." "Don't be such a baby," she replied, her voice light, almost flippant. "We've been careful. Besides, you know it's worth it." My hands trembled as I clutched the phone. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but I couldn't make a sound. It was as though the air had been sucked out of the room. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone screen in disbelief. My heart pounded in my chest as anger, betrayal, and humiliation surged through me in waves. I sat down heavily on the couch, replaying the conversation in my mind. The Sarah I knew, or thought I knew, was unraveling before me. Her dismissiveness, the cruel toast, the buzzing phone, it all made sense now. She wasn't just mocking me. She was hiding something. But who was the man? How long had this been going on? And what else was she lying about? I needed answers. But more than that, I needed a plan. That night, I barely slept. When Sarah came home, I pretended to be asleep. I could hear her fumbling around in the dark, quietly slipping into bed. Her phone buzzed again, and she quickly silenced it, muttering something under her breath. As she settled beside me, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The next morning, I acted like nothing had happened. I kissed her on the forehead as she left for work, just as I always did. But the moment she was out the door, I sprang into action. If Sarah thought I was clueless, she was in for a surprise. I was done being the fool. This was only the beginning of my search for the truth. What I'd overheard was just the tip of the iceberg, and I wasn't going to stop until I uncovered every lie she'd told. When Sarah left for work, I sat at the kitchen table, my coffee untouched. My mind replayed the call from the night before like a broken record. I couldn't shake the anger that simmered just beneath the surface. But I knew I couldn't act on emotion alone. I needed proof, solid, undeniable evidence. I grabbed my laptop and opened our shared bank account. Sarah rarely used cash, preferring her credit card for everything. If she'd been sneaking around, there had to be breadcrumbs. At first, everything seemed normal. Groceries, gas, the occasional Amazon purchase. But then I spotted something odd. A series of charges to a fancy rooftop bar downtown. Sarah had never mentioned going there, yet the transactions were frequent. Always on days she claimed to be with her girlfriends. Scrolling further, I found hotel charges. My heart sank as I clicked on one of the transactions to see the details. It was a boutique hotel, one of those romantic places with overpriced cocktails and private suites. Who was she meeting? The question burned in my mind as I moved to her cloud account. Sarah wasn't exactly tech-savvy, and I knew her phone automatically backed up photos and messages. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. The first photo I opened was innocuous enough. Sarah in a sleek black dress, posing in what looked like a hotel bathroom mirror. But then I noticed the caption she'd typed beneath it. "Can't wait to see you tonight, handsome." My stomach turned. Scrolling further, I found screenshots of text messages. Her words were playful, flirty, laced with double entendres. She called him baby, sent him photos of herself in lingerie, and complained about me. "Jake's so boring these days. I feel like I'm married to a piece of furniture." I felt a white-hot rage coursing through me. This was more than infidelity. She wasn't just betraying me. She was mocking me, belittling me to her lover while I worked to provide for us. Then I found the videos. Short, grainy clips of Sarah laughing and cuddling with a man I didn't recognize. His face was partially obscured, but I could tell he was younger, more polished, and exuded the kind of arrogance that made my skin crawl. By the time I finished combing through the evidence, my hands were trembling. There was no doubt anymore. Sarah had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I wanted to confront her, to throw the evidence in her face, and watch her crumble under the weight of her lies. But I stopped myself. No, she'd humiliated me once in public, and I wasn't going to let her off so easily. If I was going to confront her, it would be on my terms. I backed up everything onto a secure drive. Photos, texts, videos, bank statements. Then I printed copies of the most incriminating pieces. This wasn't just for me. I needed leverage. If Sarah thought she could walk away unscathed, she had another thing coming. That evening, I played the dutiful husband. When Sarah came home, I greeted her with a smile and asked about her day. She responded with the same practiced ease, completely unaware of what I'd discovered. Work was exhausting, she said, sinking onto the couch. Let's order takeout tonight? Sure, I said, my voice steady. Chinese or Italian? Surprise me, she replied, scrolling through her phone. I watched her, noting how effortlessly she lied. Not just to me, but to herself. She acted like nothing was wrong, like the life we'd built together was still intact. That night, as she slept beside me, her phone buzzed again. She didn't stir, but I reached for it carefully, my heart pounding in my chest. The screen lit up with a message from someone saved as Ethan. Miss you already. Same time next week. I slipped the phone back on our nightstand. My jaw clenched. Ethan. Finally, I had a name. Over the next few days, I became a detective in my own marriage. I tracked her movements, noting the days she claimed to be out with friends or working late. I even followed her once, keeping my distance as she entered the same rooftop bar listed on her bank statements. Sure enough, Ethan was waiting for her at the door, greeting her with a kiss that made my blood boil. Every interaction, every lie, every smile she gave him fueled my determination. Sarah thought she was clever, that I was too blind to see the truth. But what she didn't know was that I had seen everything, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. A detailed timeline of her lies, irrefutable evidence of her affair, and a plan. The humiliation she'd put me through was nothing compared to what I had in store for her. The game had shifted, and this time I was in control. Feigning ignorance wasn't easy. Every time Sarah smiled at me or kissed me on the cheek, I had to suppress the urge to confront her. But I knew the key to my revenge was patience. If I acted too soon, she'd find a way to wriggle out of it. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she had done. Over the next week, I played my role to perfection. I was the attentive husband, always one step ahead of her needs. If she wanted her favorite coffee in the morning, I made sure it was waiting for her. If she mentioned needing a new outfit for a work event, I encouraged her to go shopping. She didn't suspect a thing. In fact, she seemed more relaxed, as if my kindness absolved her of guilt. Little did she know, I was meticulously laying the groundwork for her undoing. One evening, as Sarah prepared for yet another girls' night out, I struck up a casual conversation. I said, leaning against the kitchen counter, we haven't had a big get-together with the gang in a while. How about we host something this weekend? She paused, halfway through applying her lipstick. Oh, I'm sure. That sounds fun. Her hesitation was telling. She wasn't expecting me to suggest something so social. Not after the humiliation she'd subjected me to during her infamous toast. But I needed her off balance, and this was the perfect way to do it. Great, I said, feigning excitement. I'll handle everything. You just show up and look stunning, as always. She smiled, clearly relieved. All right, you've got yourself a deal. The rest of the week was a blur of preparation. I made calls, sent out invitations, and coordinated with our friends. Everyone was eager to come. It seemed they were still riding the high of our last gathering, blissfully unaware of the tension that had followed. What Sarah didn't know was that this wasn't just a party. This was a stage, and I was the director. Every detail was part of the script I had written, with her betrayal as the main act. The evening of the party arrived, and our home was buzzing with laughter and chatter. Friends milled about, sipping cocktails and catching up. Sarah, true to form, played the perfect hostess. She floated from group to group, laughing and charming everyone with her magnetic energy. I watched her from across the room, marveling at how effortlessly she wore the mask of the devoted wife. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have been fooled. But tonight the mask would slip. As the night wore on, I tapped a fork against my glass, calling for attention. The room quieted, and all eyes turned to me. "Hey everyone," I began, my voice steady. "Thank you all for coming tonight. It's been great catching up with all of you." Sarah stood beside me, a glass of wine in hand, smiling brightly. She had no idea what was coming. I wanted to take a moment to share something. I continued, my tone deceptively casual. "A little toast, if you will." A ripple of laughter spread through the room. Some of our friends were calling Sarah's infamous toast from weeks ago. She grinned, nudging me playfully. "Look who's learning from the master," she joked. I smiled back, but my eyes were cold. "Sarah, you're right. I've been inspired by you. So tonight I want to raise a glass to honesty." Her smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Well, cheers to that," she said, lifting her glass. "Honesty," I repeated, "and the importance of trust in a marriage." The room grew quieter. Sarah shifted uncomfortably beside me, her smile now frozen in place. "You see," I said, reaching for the folder I'd hidden under the table. "Trust is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, everything falls apart." I opened the folder and began pulling out the evidence. Photos, text messages, bank statements. And sometimes, when that trust is broken, you have to confront the truth head-on. Sarah's face turned pale. "Jake, what are you doing?" She hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. Ignoring her, I held up the first photo. Sarah, in her hotel mirror, dressed provocatively. The room gasped. "This," I said, my voice unwavering, "is what happens when someone forgets what honesty means." Our friends exchanged shocked glances as I continued laying out the evidence. The text messages, the receipts, the videos. I left nothing to the imagination. Every damning piece of her betrayal was on display. "Jake, stop," Sarah finally cried, her voice cracking. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for my arm. But I stepped away. "Why should I?" I said, my voice cold. "You didn't stop when you decided to humiliate me in front of these same people. You didn't stop when you lied to me over and over again." The room was silent, the weight of my words sinking in. Sarah's tears fell freely now, but I felt no sympathy. This was her reckoning. As the night ended, Sarah stood in the center of the room. Her makeup streaked with tears while our friends avoided her gaze. I walked out, leaving her to deal with the fallout. She'd shamed me once, but tonight, I'd reclaimed my dignity. This was just the beginning of her downfall. I walked out of the house that night feeling a strange mix of emotions. Relief, anger, satisfaction. They all swirled together in a chaotic storm. Behind me, Sarah was left to face the wreckage of the life she had so carefully constructed. As I drove to a hotel I had booked earlier in the week, I replayed the scene in my mind. The gasps from our friends. The look of sheer horror on Sarah's face. The deafening silence that followed. It was everything I had envisioned, and yet it didn't feel as sweet as I thought it would. But this wasn't the end. The next morning, I received a flurry of texts from our friends. "Jake, I'm so sorry you're going through this. If you need anything, let me know. I can't believe Sarah did that. Stay strong, man. What a mess. If you want to talk, I'm here." The support was overwhelming, and it felt good to know that people saw the truth for what it was. Sarah, on the other hand, was getting the opposite reaction. Screenshots of the evidence had circulated among our social circle. I hadn't intended for it to spread that way, but I wasn't about to stop it either. People needed to know who she really was. By midday, Sarah called me. "Jake," she said, her voice shaking, "we need to talk." I leaned back in my chair at the hotel, calm and collected. "About what?" "About everything," she snapped, the panic in her voice unmistakable. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You aired our private life like it was some kind of spectacle. You mean the way you humiliated me weeks ago? I shot back. The way you turned me into the punchline of your jokes while you were sneaking around behind my back? That was different, she protested. I was just kidding. You took it too far. Too far. I laughed bitterly. Sarah, the only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. You made your choices, and now you're dealing with the consequences. She tried to argue, to spin the narrative in her favor, but I was done listening. I hung up and blocked her number. Over the next few days, Sarah's life began to unravel. Word had spread beyond our immediate friends. Her coworkers knew, her family knew, even her social media followers knew. The carefully curated image she had spent years building was in tatters. I received a message from one of her friends, one of the few who hadn't laughed at her cruel toast. Jake, I just wanted to say that I saw all the signs, but I didn't want to get involved. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. It didn't matter. Sarah had fooled everyone, including me. A week later, Sarah showed up at my office unannounced. She looked exhausted, her makeup minimal, her clothes wrinkled. This wasn't the confident, composed woman I had married. Jake, please, she said, her voice breaking. I made a mistake, a huge mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her, unmoved. You lost me the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for you. Tears streamed down her face, but they meant nothing to me now. I was stupid, she continued. I was selfish. I got caught up in something I didn't even want. It was never about you, Jake. I was I was bored. Bored, I repeated. My voice, I see. You destroyed our marriage because you were bored. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I've already filed for divorce, I said firmly. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Jake, no, she cried, her voice desperate. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it. I'll do whatever it takes. There's nothing left to fix, I said. You made sure of that. Sarah's desperation only grew in the weeks that followed. She called, texted, even showed up at the house unannounced. But I stayed strong, refusing to give her any more of my time or energy. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Thanks to the evidence I had collected, the court sided heavily in my favor. Sarah walked away with almost nothing while I retained the house, our savings, and most importantly, my dignity. By the time the dust settled, Sarah was a shadow of her former self. Her lover, Ethan, had disappeared the moment her infidelity became public. Her friends had distanced themselves, and even her family looked at her differently. As for me, I was finally free. I sold the house, moved to a new city, and started fresh. It wasn't easy rebuilding my life, but I knew I deserved better. The scars Sarah left would take time to heal, but I was stronger now, wiser too. In the end, her betrayal had been a gift in disguise. It had shown me who she truly was and given me the chance to reclaim my life. And as I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun set over the city, I realized something. The best revenge wasn't ruining her life. The best revenge was moving on with mine. Months passed. The whirlwind of chaos Sarah had unleashed on my life gradually faded, leaving behind a strange, peaceful silence. I no longer woke up feeling the crushing weight of betrayal. Instead, I woke up with clarity, knowing that I had taken control of my life and steered it towards something better. My new city offered a fresh start. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I rented a cozy apartment in a high-rise building downtown with enough space for just me. No reminders of the past. No shadows of Sarah lingering in the corners. I threw myself into my work, a software project I had neglected for years. It became more than just a side hustle. It became a purpose. Working late into the night didn't feel like a chore anymore. Felt like freedom. The friends I had left behind in the old city reached out occasionally, checking in on me. Some apologized for laughing at Sarah's cruel jokes that night in the bar. I should have said something. One of them texted me. We all knew it was wrong, but we didn't want to ruin the vibe. I'm sorry, man. I didn't hold it against them anymore. They hadn't been the ones to betray me. They'd been duped by Sarah's charm, just like I had. As for Sarah, News of her downfall trickled to me through mutual acquaintances. She had moved out of our old house and was living in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of town. The high-paying job she'd once bragged about? Gone. Apparently, her office had caught wind of her personal scandal, and it didn't sit well with the image-obsessed executives. Ethan, her lover, had vanished as quickly as he'd appeared. According to one of Sarah's former friends, he blocked her on everything once the public exposure happened. She was alone now, scrambling to rebuild a life that no longer revolved around admiration and praise. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not really. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. One evening, while scrolling through my emails, I came across a message from Sarah. It had been weeks since I'd last heard from her, and I debated deleting it without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. Subject: I'm sorry. Jake, I don't even know where to begin. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to tell you how sorry I am for everything. For the lies, the betrayal, and for humiliating you the way I did. You didn't deserve any of it. You were a good husband, better than I ever gave you credit for. I threw away something beautiful because I was selfish and stupid. Now I have nothing, and I can't stop thinking about how much I hurt you. I hope someday you can forgive me. Even if we never speak again, I just want you to know that I'm sorry. Reading her words, I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. I had already moved past her. I didn't respond. Instead, I archived the email and went back to work. Life moved on. The project I had poured my soul into finally launched. And to my surprise, it gained traction quickly. What started as a labor of love turned into a lucrative business, giving me the financial freedom I'd always dreamed of. With my newfound success, I began to explore the world outside of work. I joined a local hiking club, started taking photography lessons, and even tried my hand at cooking, a hobby Sarah had once mocked me for. Turns out I wasn't as bad at it as she had claimed. One afternoon, while hiking a trail near the edge of the city, I met someone. Her name was Rachel, and she was as different from Sarah as night was from day. She was kind, down-to-earth, and refreshingly genuine. We started talking during the hike, sharing stories about our lives and what had brought us to the city. By the time we reached the summit, we were laughing like old friends. "Let me guess," she said, grinning. "You're here for a fresh start." "Something like that," I replied, smiling back. Rachel didn't pry or ask about my past, and I didn't feel the need to explain. With her, I felt no pressure to pretend, no fear of being judged. Months later, as I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner for Rachel and me, I couldn't help but marvel at how far I'd come. The man Sarah had humiliated in that bar no longer existed. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who had reclaimed his life and found happiness on his own terms. The scars she'd left were still there, faint but present. They serve as reminders, not of pain, but of lessons learned. When Rachel arrived that evening, she greeted me with a warm smile, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. Because the best revenge wasn't just moving on. It was finding joy again, and I had finally done just that. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to hit the like button. It only takes a second, but it means a world to us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming videos, and hit the notification bell to be among the first to see it. See you in the next video.